Alright, Nerdvana and Nexus crew, Captain Ren reporting for duty. Drop whatever you're doing, because today, we're not just watching the skies, we're commanding them. After shaking the very foundations with Aerokinesis, prepare to be swept off your feet by the most agile, unpredictable, and frankly unstoppable power in all of fiction, Aerokinesis. Forget just controlling the wind, that's kindergarten stuff. We're talking about characters who ride the literal storm front, who can slice through steel with invisible blades of air, who can suffocate entire armies with just a whisper, or level cities by merely breathing. If you ever dreamt of flight, yearned to conjure a hurricane, or just wanted to witness the sheer, terrifying majesty of nature's breath weaponized, then buckle up, because this deep dive is your ultimate flight manual. So, ready to feel the true might of the winds? Let's get started. So what exactly is aerokinesis? At its core, it's the ability to manipulate and control air, wind, atmospheric pressure, and even gases. It's not just blowing air, though that's certainly part of it. Think of it as having the atmosphere itself at your command. It's fluid, ubiquitous, and incredibly versatile. It encompasses several sub-abilities, often used interchangeably, but each with its own unique focus. Starting this off, there's anemokinesis, which is the direct manipulation of wind and air currents. Think summoning gusts, creating whirlwinds, riding airstreams, or pushing opponents with powerful blasts of wind. This is your core airbending. Next up is atmokinesis, or weather manipulation. This is the control over atmospheric conditions, summoning storms, clearing skies, creating fog, or even generating lightning by manipulating static electricity in the air. This is a higher tier, more destructive aspect of aerokinesis, however. Flying forward, we have aeroportation, or, well, flight. The ability to manipulate air to levitate oneself or others, allowing for controlled flight or rapid aerial movement. This is often a fundamental application. Also, there's sonokinesis, or sound manipulation. While sound is distinct, its propagation relies heavily on air. Advanced aerokinetics can manipulate air density to amplify, dampen, or even weaponize sound waves. Then, there's vacuum or pressure manipulation, the creation of airless voids or localized areas of extreme pressure. Imagine suffocating foes, crushing objects, or creating powerful shockwaves. This is often very subtle, but deadly. Wrapping this up is vapor or cloud manipulation, control over moisture in the air to create fog, dense clouds for cover, or even subtle illusions. A very underrated aspect of aerokinesis, but one nonetheless. Symbolically, air often represents freedom, change, intellect, communication, and the unseen. It's fluid, adaptable, pervasive, and limitless, but also holds the power of chaos, destruction, and overwhelming force. Aerokinetics often embody these traits, from graceful, evasive maestros to bringers of devastating tempests. Think of the unseen currents that guide a leaf, or the crushing force of a hurricane. Air is both the breath of life and the breath that can extinguish it. So, how do characters get this invisible but undeniable power? The most obvious one is elemental bending. The most iconic example. Airbending is a cornerstone discipline focusing on evasive maneuvers and spiritual connection. Next up is mutations and genetic gifts. Characters born with inherent abilities to control air often manifest early in life. Think of Stormbringers like, well, Storm from X-Men. And then we have magical affinity or spells. In a lot of works of fiction, mages specialize in wind or air magic, often invoking spirits or ancient words to command the winds. Lastly, we have divine connection or sky spirits, characters empowered by or descended from sky deities, wind gods, or elemental air spirits. Mastering aerokinesis means you're not just a combatant, you're a battlefield controller, a master of evasion, and a living weather system, all rolled into one. This power is deceptively versatile. Starting off with the offensive arsenal, there's wind blasts and compressions. Simple yet effective, concussive force to push, knock down, or even crush opponents. Then, there's air blades and vacuums, creating sharp, cutting currents or localized, airless zones for precision strikes or suffocation. Next up is sound amplification or weaponization. using air to create deafening sonic attacks or direct focused sound waves. And wrapping this section up is the storm summoning, your bread and butter, calling down lightning strikes, making tornadoes, hailstorms, all of the like for widespread devastation. With the offensive potency out of the way, next up is defense, and to start things off is air shields and barriers, your bread and butter defensive application, creating invisible walls of compressed air to deflect projectiles or absorb impacts. Next is atmospheric manipulation, like I mentioned earlier, creating fog for cover, dampening sound to remain hidden, or altering pressure to disorient foes. And lastly, in our defensive category is evasion and flight, effortlessly dodging attacks, using bursts of air for rapid movement, or simply flying out of harm's way. While this can sort of go with our next category, it still has a little bit of defensive applications as it helps with you not being hit. Wrapping up the entire ability section is utility and movement. And like I just said, evasion and flight can double up for both defense and utility. Flight and levitation is quite literally the quintessential aerokinetic ability. But there's more than just that. There's environmental control, clearing paths and redirecting projectiles or allies by creating updrafts for gliding. On the topic of supporting allies, we have sensory perception, feeling minute air currents to detect hidden enemies or changes in the environment, as well as oxygen control, supplying oxygen in hostile environments such as a burning building, or conversely, removing the oxygen, which makes your enemies weaker. The ability to command the very air we breathe is, without a doubt, an S-tier power. From razor-sharp wind blades to unstoppable tornadoes, an aerokinetic is a true force of nature. But, as with any incredible power, Aerokinesis isn't foolproof. It comes with a set of critical weaknesses and limitations that can ground even the most powerful wind user. Let's break down the fault lines in this elemental ability. First up, and most obvious, the vacuum problem. Aerokinetics manipulate air. Take away the air, and you take away their power. An opponent who can create a vacuum or trap them in a truly airtight space, like an earth-wrought dome, can render them almost completely powerless. No air, no control. Second is the intangibility issue. Unlike a geokinetic who can summon a solid wall of rock, an aerokinetic's defense is all about deflection, not absorption. While they can create powerful barriers of compressed air, stopping a massive, solid object like a mountain hurled by a telekinetic, or even just a powerful physical punch, is incredibly difficult. You can't punch a ghost, and it's really hard to block a fist with just wind. Third, we have the chaos factor. Wind is naturally chaotic and formless. It takes immense concentration and mental discipline to control it precisely. This often means an aerokinetic's powers are tied to their emotional state. A moment of intense rage could unintentionally turn a focused gust into a devastating city-wide storm, making them a danger to everyone, including their own friends. Next are the elemental counters. While powerful, air can be overwhelmed. A massive firestorm from a pyrokinetic can consume the oxygen in an area, literally stealing an aerokinetic's ammunition. On the other hand, a powerful hydrokinetic can summon a torrential downpour, weighing down the air and making it sluggish and difficult to manipulate. And finally, the physical and mental toll. Sustaining a large-scale feat is not easy. Keeping a hurricane active, flying at high speeds, or creating a massive defensive vortex would be incredibly draining on both the user's stamina and their mental energy, leaving them vulnerable over long, drawn-out battles. So, with a power this versatile, who are the absolute masters that make commanding the wind look like breathing? Let's give a massive shout out to the legends, the titans of the sky who have literally blown away the competition across the nerdy multiverse. First up, you absolutely have to start with the masters from Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra, specifically Aang and his son Tenzin. They are the quintessential airbenders. Their entire fighting style isn't about brute force, it's fluid, it's evasive, built on the philosophy of redirection and control. They embody the defensive and highly mobile aspects of aerokinesis, and of course, their flight, whether it's on a glider or with an air scooter, is absolutely iconic. Next, let's jump over to the world of Marvel Comics. because you can't talk about wind without bowing down to the Omega level mutant, Ororo Monroe, the one and only Storm. Now, Storm isn't just about wind. She's a full-blown atmokinetic, controlling all weather phenomena, but her command of the wind is central to her power. We're talking everything from gentle breezes, devastating, world-ending hurricanes, and tornadoes at a moment's notice. She showcases a truly terrifying natural disaster side of its ability on a global scale. From the fighting game arena, we have an actual deity of air, Fujin from Mortal Kombat. As the god of wind, Fujin directly manipulates air currents for everything. He uses it for intense combat, creating miniature tornadoes and propelling himself for powerful kicks, and for flight. He brings a unique and graceful martial arts flair to the power, showing how Aerokinesis can be seamlessly blended into a physical fighting style. Hopping over to a world where magic is everything, let's talk about the prodigy wielder of the four-leaf clover grimoire, Yuno Grinberryall from Black Clover. Yuno's whole deal is wind magic, but he takes it to an entirely new level by being chosen by Sylph, the actual wind spirit. This allows him to do insane stuff, from creating massive destructive tornadoes to crafting precise, razor-sharp blades of wind. And we can't forget his spirit dive, where he essentially fuses with Sylph to become a lightning-fast, unstoppable force of nature, even creating a powerful spirit sword. He's a perfect example of magic-based aerokinetic, whose power grows through his bond with a powerful elemental spirit. And of course, it's not always about grand elemental control. Think about how many swordsmen and other characters in anime use wind-based techniques, from wind-style jutsus in Naruto that create cutting blades of air, to swordsmen in One Piece, or Bleach, who can launch compressed air projectiles from their swords. This just shows the incredible versatility of wind as an element that can be infused into any combat style. Last, and certainly not least, we're going to talk about a different flavor of wind power from the world of Naruto. While many shinobi use wind release, Naruto Uzumaki himself created one of its most iconic applications, the Rasen Shuriken. He took an existing powerful jutsu and infused it with his wind nature chakra, creating a microscopic blade storm that severs on a cellular level. It's a perfect example of wind being used not just as a blunt force, but as a razor-sharp, devastatingly precise weapon. Alright Nexians, time to put on our lab coats for a second and get a little nerdy with the science behind how Aerokinesis could work. Even though we know it's mostly pure fiction, but hey, the coolest powers often have some roots, however twisted, in real-world concepts, right? First up, let's talk about something fundamental, pressure differentials. This is the core on how air exerts force. Think about it. A sudden, massive drop in air pressure in one spot compared to the surrounding air, that could create explosive bursts of force, like a localized vacuum imploding. Conversely, a rapid increase in pressure could generate powerful shockwaves. This concept is at the heart of many aerokinetic attacks we see. Next, we delve into fluid dynamics. Remember, from science class, that air, just like water, is a fluid. And understanding how fluids flow is absolutely key to manipulating air currents. Aerokinetics are essentially masters of airflow, creating those perfect vortexes, generating lift for flight, and precisely directing gusts of wind. It's all about understanding how air moves and how to bend those currents to your will. Now, let's crank up the power a bit. Ever heard of a sonic boom? That's what happens when something breaks the sound barrier, compressing air into incredibly powerful shockwaves. In theory, an aerokinetic who can move and compress air to those extreme speeds could generate devastating sonic booms and shockwaves. Talk about an attack with some serious impact. And finally, let's touch on something that often gets mixed in with wind powers, especially when we're talking about characters like Storm: static electricity. Think about how real-world thunderstorms work. It's all about the buildup and discharge of static charges in the atmosphere. Many atmokinetics who control all weather can tap into this to generate lightning strikes. So, while not strictly manipulating air molecules themselves, the control over the atmosphere often includes playing with very real electrical phenomenon. Of course, let's be real. The how in most fiction often involves a healthy dose of ignoring actual physics. But it's cool to see how these real world scientific principles can give us a foundation, however fantastical, for these amazing powers. So, what's my official Nerdvana Nexus rating for Aerokinesis? This invisible force is incredibly versatile, always present, and offers unmatched mobility and environmental control. Its potential for both subtle manipulation and raw destructive power is immense. Its main weakness might be that direct brute force combat isn't always its first instinct, but when it goes destructive, it's terrifying. I'm giving this boundless ability a soaring 4.5 out of 5. It's adaptable, it's omnipresent, it's strategically brilliant, and a master aerokinetic can literally control the battlefield and the very air you breathe. However, the weaknesses for me are just too glaring. But hey, that's my 2 cents. Who's your favorite aerokinetic? The one who truly blows you away? Did Aang's mastery of flight inspire you? Or does Storm's command of the elements reign supreme? Do you agree with my rating, or would you place Aerokinesis even higher? Get those comments rolling, let's stir some things up. And if you enjoyed this deep dive and felt the power of the air, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to Nerdvana Nexus for more superpower breakdowns and all kinds of nerdy stuff, and ring that noti bell so you don't miss our next Sky High episode. Until next time, stay breezy, stay awesome, and this is your captain speaking, signing out.